Now, exotic expertise on some of the peculiar animals to call in Nottinghamshire University home. Matt Norris is a zoologist at Nottingham Trent Uni, and once a month he joins us here to show off some of the curious creatures in the university's collection. He also shows off some species to thousands of followers on TikTok. If creatures that wiggle, wriggle, or maybe even jiggle are not your idea of Thursday evening entertainment, then I'd say you look away now, because we are about to find out some worm facts with Matt. Hi, Matt. I've been saying all show that we've got a massive worm, and I'm very excited about this because I bought the Julia Donaldson book Superworm over the past few weeks, so I'm now a worm fan. Can we see?
There you go. You'll be all factored out then after this. So I've actually got a couple of. So they're called slowworms, but just to really curveball you here, they're actually not worms at all.
Oh, what?
So even though they're called slowworms and they look a little bit like miniature snakes, don't they? But they're not even snakes. They're actually a type of lizard that has lost its legs.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, and they've got tongues. So I don't, because they look a bit like eels as well, like land eels. So how? I don't understand. I don't know where to go with this. So they're not worms. They're not snakes. They're lizards. Why haven't they got the legs? How have they where do they live? What use is that?
No. These are good questions. I'm glad I've stumped you here with the worms that are in fact not worms. So so they're basically legless lizards. So the reason they've lost their legs entirely is that they actually don't need them at all. So these guys sliver around on their bellies and they live on the ground. And they normally live under things like logs where they look for little slugs and worms and everything like that. So they don't actually need their legs at all, which is one of the reasons why they've lost them. And one of the other things that differentiates them from snakes is that they're actually able to blink and close their eyes, which no snake is able to do. So normally these guys, they just live under logs and they chase slow-moving prey like slugs and, ironically, real worms, which they eat from time to time. And we've got a male and a female here. So the male is this guy who's kind of stretching himself out a little bit, and the female is in this hand here.
How do you know? How can you possibly tell?
Yeah, another solid question, as always. So if I show you the male, first of all, so the male is just kind of a generic browny grey colour. So he hasn't really got any pattern or tones on him there. Whereas if I show you the female, and it's hard to see on your camera, but she's got like a little stripe down the side, and she's also got a stripe on the back, whereas the male is just generic all over. So he hasn't got any kind of dark belly. So that's how you can tell. And we actually have this species in the wild in the UK as well. So some of your viewers from time to time might have actually found these kind of animals in their gardens.
Are they safe if we're foraging and we see them? Are they safe for humans? They're
absolutely safe for humans. Even if one did bite you, it would be laughable. You might end up with a few tiny little pinprick kind of marks if it did bite you, but they have no venom. They're completely harmless, and they're actually great for your garden because, like I say, they eat slugs and snails and all of the kind of things that destroy your garden plants. But as always, with anything that looks a little bit like a snake in the UK, it's always best to err on the side of caution and leave it alone if you do see it and you're not sure, because they're kind of similar looking to the adder, which is a venomous snake that we have in the UK.
Oh, blimey, don't even risk it. I do feel sorry for them. So the male has lost its legs, it's got no discerning qualities, and it's serves very little purpose apart from eating slugs. But well, thank you so much. That's brilliant. I've never seen one of those in real life. What else have you got, Matt? There's always a couple of surprises for us. So we've done the huge worm / snake lizard.
We have indeed. And up next is this little guy here. So this is a fire salamander. And these aren't native to the UK, but they are native to most of Europe. So actually, the UK is one of the few places where they actually don't live. And I think these guys are kind of cute. They're kind of like walking rubber toys.
Oh, right. So producer Rachel has asked the most important question. What's its name?
So this one is called Fugo. So it's basically named after, it's the Latin for fire, or the Spanish, I think maybe Spanish for fire. And actually, one of the reasons they get the name of fire salamanders isn't because they create fire themselves. That would be quite startling. But it's actually because back in the day, people discovered them hundreds of years ago when they would put logs on the fire, and then suddenly they'd have all these salamanders coming out. And the reason for it is actually that these guys like to live in logs where it's safe and damp. And then obviously when they were put on a fireplace, it got warm and they'd crawl out of it. And so that's where the kind of legend came from, that they were born from fire. And it's why they're called fire salamanders today. But no, they don't like being warm. If anything, they like to be quite cool and damp.
That's right. This is where my lack of knowledge comes out now. But that's quite the opposite of most lizards, etc., isn't it?
It is indeed, yes. So this guy's a salamander, which is actually a kind of amphibian. So they're more closely related to like frogs and toads. So in the same way as frogs like to be quite damp and, slimy, and you'll never see a frog sunbathing. If you do, it'll be dried up, crispy and dead. So just in that same way, salamanders like to hide from the sun. But you're quite right that most lizards, certainly that's one thing that differentiates them, is they like to be in the warmth and dry.
And what would he eat, or she eat, they eat?
So very similar to the slowworms, these guys normally eat soft-bodied, slow-moving prey. So things like slugs, earthworms. Here we also feed things like little crickets and grasshopper-type prey items. So again, they're really handy to have in your garden if you live in Europe, because they normally will kind of eat all of the little insects that will try and destroy your garden plants.
Oh, but you're not going to... Are they good? Do they make good pets, this sort of fire salamander?
So fire salamanders are one of the more common species of salamander that you get in the pet trade, and that's because they are actually relatively hardy and durable. But I wouldn't say they make easy pets. In fact, all reptiles and amphibians, to a degree, are really quite challenging compared to something like a hamster or a gerbil. So, for example, these guys have to have access to fresh, purified water and rainwater, which is obviously a little bit hard to come by unless you're prepared to actually go and collect rainwater. And they are relatively delicate, but in terms of amphibians out there, to be fair, this is one of the more hardy.
Right. Matt, thank you very much. As ever, we enjoy it. It's nice to meet your diva salamander.